Greetings, sending you all warm, positive vibrations. Shout out to all of my early risers. Happy Sunday. Just coming in quickly for a Sunday morning chat. I thought I would just pop in. About to make some tea. So we have here some sorrel, right? Which is in hibiscus family. And I do recycle containers here. So usually this is bright red, and it's starting. Still has a kind of citrusy sweet scent to it, aroma. So this is the sorrel fruit, or the fruit flower of the plant, and when it's dried, it becomes a dark red. Sometimes you can see it a brighter red when it's just fresh dried. So it's very, very high in vitamin C. It's good for your red blood cells. It's good for men. It's good for women. So I'm going to make a nice pot of tea. So I'm going to take some filtered water and I'll water filter. Add some water in the tea. This water should be more than a cup of tea. It'd be nice to add some ginger. Quite a bit of taps in there, and sometimes it's like, which taps do I do first? So I wanted to come in and I wanted to chat. As I'm moving about in the early hours of the day, my mind is usually very lucid and clear. I'm a big music lover, though sometimes it can be really, really good and therapeutic to have nothing on, no music. I'm someone that really loves music, and I love to exercise and move to music. Shout out to all the folks that join me at 5 a.m. during the week for our signature workout, Hit It and Quit It, cardio, flexibility, and strength at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Thursday, and Friday is a community class. I'm folding laundry, making tea, all of that. So, sometimes I reflect on how therapeutic silence can be. And I'm very, very clear that my mind solutions, my own onboard intelligence is extremely lucid in the early mornings, which is why I'm an avid early riser. And I see why my grandma Lou was such an early riser. So there's certain things that I think about in the early day. And I like to say I ask questions of my own divine onboard innate intelligence. And I would say, and I'm not a mookajuke, spookajuke person, right? Not to be dismissive of anyone's practices or whatever. But I feel that, quote unquote, what's being touted as spirituality is actually very, very practical. And this is just one woman's perspective. If it doesn't resonate, leave it right here. I feel that we can get so caught up in rituals, and rituals do have their place and they're important. We lose a groundedness and a practicality. We get lost in the ritual and the scriptural verses, and we're not grounded in common sense, right? There's no shortage of religion. People are creating more religions, cults, groups every day. And I think there's a reason why. I love to get to the why. But it seems we're not enacting common sense when it comes to making choices in very practical areas. For example, in our consumption patterns, what we're eating, what we're submitting or exposing our body temples to, right? Things that are potentially damaging to the actual physical temple. So if we were to step back, it doesn't appear that all of the education, all of the information about things that damage your body in terms of food, in terms of indiscriminate use of our body parts, it hasn't been enough for us to not actively engage, and it's a spectrum, in self-sabotaging behaviors. So it's something I've actually wondered about since I was a child. Like, why do the adults do this? Why do they smoke? Why do they drink? Why do they beat their wives? Why would you take in a drug that's going to destroy your face? And I do know that no one does something without a reason. So one of the things I was thinking of this morning, I was thinking, I think of this often. So, again, this is just one woman's contemplations and perspective based on my life experience. Yours may be different. I often wonder in this climate where there's so much talk of narcissism and the behavior of our men, human folks, and the back and forth in terms of blaming, sometimes misplaced and sometimes accurate, right? Or the wanting, the maybe most of the blaming. The tone is one of blaming, anger, accusatory, pointing the finger in both directions because we all have things that we're responsible for. I wonder, does it ever occur to us, how do we cease the behavior, right? It appears that we're waiting on a government, we're waiting on a group or a set of people. We're asking desperately for them to change their behavior. In the quiet of the morning, I contemplate, why not, and this may seem overly simple, why not disengage, right? Now, let me just say, I am a mother. I am not a hater of men or women or of groups. There's definitely different groups of behavior, right? And I like to get things to the simplest common denominator. There are definitely behaviors that are unacceptable and that I find acceptable. I find it unacceptable. But you got to think, if you can identify unacceptable behavior that's not going to make you feel good, that as you look at the myriad, the plethora, all of the evidence of this behavior leads to this, that is so simple, then why do we continue to engage, right? This is something, do you wonder in your quiet moments without the distraction? And it's easy to blame the government, easy to blame the fast food companies. Why not disengage? And I think that's an excellent question. Right? I'm not immune and I'm not a saint. And I definitely ain't a martyr. I ain't Jesus. I don't have all the answers. So I'm just sharing, one woman's perspective. By the way, if you're new to this channel, welcome. I'm Body-Culinary, professional chef, uh, personal trainer, and fitness coach. I coach people who really desire to upgrade their eating patterns, right? The labels you want to call yourself, that's up to you. Labels don't necessarily lead to results. Distinctions in terms of what I'd like to eat or what I'd like to participate in, that's what labels are. But however, how are the labels serving us in our quiet moments? It's very easy for us to ego trip off of the labels. I'm a this, I'm a that. We get so caught in the label of I'm a this. Yet in our quiet moments, when it comes to the self-sabotage, I don't find that the label is enough to totally help us to disengage from the self-sabotage, right? And so as a coach, as a trainer, as a chef, it's often, I say it's all the time, for people to ask me for recipes and workouts. That's the easy part. Yet that doesn't mean that these behaviors are going to be sustainable, even as therapeutic as they are. Do you all realize that we have access? What does it cost for you to squat, wherever you are right now, to do a push-up, to dance, to move? What does it cost for you to eat a piece of fruit? What does it cost for you to not eat the substances masquerading as foods? What does that cost? What does it cost for you to eat the amounts that are appropriate for your body temple? Does this seem overly simple? What does it cost, right? I do body composition assessments and girth measurements. However, I invite you to consider, what does it cost for you to reach your hand down right now to your midsection, right? The stomach is small, so distinction, your midsection, and grab your midsection and to identify if there is a lot of additional and excess adipose tissue, the technical term for fatty tissue, and perhaps visceral fat wrapping around your organs, not just the subcutaneous fat that's right underneath the skin, but excess unhealthful adipose tissue. So that is something that we can ascertain on our own. I'm humbled. I am humbled by how much we are affected by what we watch, what we listen to. I'll be honest with myself. Why? Because I'm looking for a certain level of results. And I'm also humbled by how much our psyche is exposed, our psyche, our subconscious, what is driving most of our autopilot repetitive behaviors. I am humbled. Lots of education, lots of experience. I strive for awareness. I have a lot of good habits that I would say have been significant deposits into my 401k that I still reap the benefits of. That does not mean I'm out of the woods. That doesn't mean, okay, I've got all these great habits and these deposits of health and muscle tone that I don't need to continue to make good choices, right? So, anyway, back to my original thought this morning. I'm just going to say it. I was thinking as a woman and as a mother, and I was going to say I'm not a man hater, woman hater, any of that, because I give birth to sons, right? And daughters. But I was wondering, women, do we ever consider, if we look at the world climate, do we consider what we are giving birth to? Even at 18 and 19, now we know, we don't know everything at 18, 19, even in our early 20s. Can we truly, this is not about blame. This is for the intention of this conversation, and in your quiet moments, is to stimulate personal reflection. Do you ever think about what your contribution and how are we as individuals, that's what we're responsible for, how are we contributing to a climate that is unsafe? What are we contributing to birthing narcissists, violent people? Do we ever consider, because I just don't think it can't be only the men, because we're continuing to birth. And I think a lot comes down to being unaware. And if we're unaware, without making ourselves bad or wrong, we're still responsible. We're making a lot of choices out of emotions. And if we reverse engineer and work it backwards, a lot of our decisions, we're making them not thinking long term. When we have enough consistent evidence to demonstrate the likelihood of certain results. Now, you could do everything intentionally and things can still turn out another way. Yet we have a tendency, and in society, we have a tendency to let ourselves off the hook. It's like when some folks say, oh, you can grow a garden because of the environment you're in. That's not true. We have a conversation where we're giving ourselves an out. Do you give yourself an out? I could easily give myself an out when it comes to exercise, or I've done enough, or I can give myself an out. That's a collective conversation. And in terms of groupthink, subconsciously, I think as a species, or I'm observing as a species, we have a drive to fit in and to get the validation from other people in the group, right? And I think, where did this come from? We can trace this back to validation or lack of validation from our parents. And I say this not to get stuck in that, to start blaming our parents, though when you can step back objectively and start to see, well, where do some of these behaviors, what is sparking my self-sabotage, right? My behaviors are mindless in one sense, and in another sense, not so mindless, though automatic pilot, because when we are seeking pleasure, whether that is from food, right? And I've observed most of us are eating mostly for pleasure, not so much for nutrition or the cells. So if we're seeking pleasure, if we're seeking distraction, we're seeking a lot of distraction. Well, then why do we need so much distraction? Why is there a heightened anxiety? Why such a need for distraction to the point where fixated and addicted, and we're wired, and it's a chemical response with dopamine, etc., to distraction? Well, that would say if you have a desire to escape from your present reality, that would say that something in your reality is not so present, or there's some trauma and residuals from trauma that are left there that we haven't processed, or that we may be confused through whatever our religions are, or information we're getting from social media as to how to process a lot of this stuff, right? There's so many terms: narcissism, shadow work. It's a lot of information. yet to process it in a very simple, practical way. I don't want to say simple, in a practical way, in a way that we have access to, you can get very overwhelmed and confused by the amount of information that's there. What does your own intelligence, have to say? And in my early teens and my 20s, I couldn't make the distinction. I didn't have a language or frame of reference to make the distinction between the ego in a very practical sense and also uh, what I'm going to call my onboard intelligence, right? Some people could call it God, whatever, to distinguish between the different forms of information, how we're processing information, and how we're determining how to keep ourselves safe, how to proceed with decision making. As initially, those definitions, we get that information now through the internet, which makes us wide open for narcissists, wide open, religious, otherwise. But initially, I got that information from spiritual teachers, right? That's not a language that I heard in, at least in the Afro community. Those were not conversations that I heard in the church. I was raised in a Pentecostal household. And then later, experiencing ashrams and looking into the NOI, and then, looking into Sunni Islam, and what was it, the some kind of inter something church that was non-denominational, looking for answers. I know definitely as a young girl, my main impetus was one, why are the adults self-sabotaging with drugs, alcohol, beating on their wives? Why economically, as a group, are we not progressing? Why the constant conflict and not able to communicate with each other in ways that are respectful in order to solve problems and come up with solutions? A lot of that I did not see. Now, it doesn't mean I came up with nothing, right? I definitely got some values from my mom, from my grandma, all these family members, but also there can be multiple truths, distinction. There can be multiple truths. You can acknowledge the positive things and the useful, right? We get into the judgments. I can distinguish the useful things and the useful habits, even useful rituals that I received, and useful cultural patterns that I received. I can also acknowledge the dysfunctional ones, right? Sometimes the way that we handle children, or children should be seen and not heard, I can make those distinctions. Uh, we're not encouraged to make those distinctions culturally as we're small. And I don't think that that's limited to Afro people, but I'm speaking as someone Afro-American and also Afro-Caribbean. That's my cultural, background. So anyways, I think about these things. I think of, at this point, as a mature adult, the self-sabotage comes up. It comes up, and here it shows its face. It shows its face in our consumption patterns, right? A lot of us want to talk about only eating and our vanity. And I get it, the skin. I used to have a face full of acne. I definitely recognized as a young girl, I didn't have the language, but I knew I didn't want to be morbidly obese. I didn't know what morbidly obese was, but I knew that's not what I wanted. I knew I did not want to come across as so angry, just constantly angry and irritated. And that when I chose to be a mom, that my family, my children would be affected by me being so angry. And I could recognize I would not be a present mom. That I could recognize that I was like, I don't think I'm going to be a good mom if I'm angry. So why is everybody angry? So I'm looking as a child, why are the adults so angry? So I figured out grandpa, he fought in wars. Wow, that means he saw dead bodies. That could really jack you up. They didn't talk about that. Poverty can do that when you're scrambling or struggling for resources. I can definitely think as a man, to be unsure. Where's a safe space for men, especially all men, but definitely the men in my culture? Where was the safe space? Where's the safe space to have conversations and to express without being judged that you're unsure or scared about how to provide for your family? That's a lot. Men are not really allowed to do that. And not just that, because there's a lot of trauma bonding online. after expressing these fears, and I speak about the 5 basic human fears on this channel, after expressing those fears, then where comes in the practical solutions, right? There's so many groups garnering for membership. And I thought this even as a child. I felt like so much time was spent in the church and praising and praising and praising that where was the practicality of building, right? And business, right? And innovation with business and new solutions. I remember the watermelon man. I remember the fruit and vegetable truck. I remember the ice man. So even in the neighborhood where I was raised in New York, Brooklyn, and then New York, I remember it wasn't Afro folks that owned the stores in the community. Yet you still had trucks coming in. Those were African American owned businesses back then. And I just remember it wasn't like a lot of fanfare. It was just very practical. That's what they did, right? Whatever the cost was, maybe they didn't have big accounting systems, but if somebody had a truck that was coming from down south or collard greens, however they made that happen, it almost seemed like it was just very natural. You know, I remember conversation. Again, there's nuances, right? We can get very polarized in our thinking. There's something with this internet. We become very black and white when there can be multiple truths. You got to be Democrat, you got to be Republican. If you follow or if you agree with these things that this particular leader has said, you have to agree with all your tenets. I am so crystal clear that I don't have allegiance more to people at this point. I think, and this may be useful for younger flowers and young men, that I can identify, and this is very important in this age of cults, the online, the mob-like mentality, which is actually not very practical. That it's the principles, not just the people. It's principles that I can have access to. Like, for example, on this channel, I share a lot things that I think may be useful. And there are 3 practices so simple that we all actually have access to. Garden therapy, everybody can grow a plant. Whatever your situation, whatever your temperature. Look, you have YouTube. So I invite us to consider letting ourselves off. What is that mentality when we let ourselves off the hook? Or more than let off the hook. I like to be very mindful of the language, right? Because the language, the way we're speaking to ourselves has a feeling to it. Let off the hook. So I'll upgrade the language. More so than off the hook, we let ourselves off of the accountability. And letting ourselves off the accountability, that's not a benefit. That's a weakness. I'm suspicious. I am wary. That is a distinction. I love distinctions. I'm wary of someone giving me advice or advising me on something that I can discern the long-term effects, or something that would weaken me or compromise my decisions. Anything that would have me on the whole stroll. I'm looking at you, your company, sideways, male, female, black, white, whatever package, because I can discern patterns, and I find it is so freeing. It is so freeing. It can seem like a lot. It can be very emotional. It can be very paradigm shifting to accept responsibility, not for what others have done to you, though to accept responsibility for what you can change. To accept responsibility for what you can change. That means somewhere you're tasked to do something, because your own divine onboard innate intelligence can look around and can distinguish what there is to do. Fold laundry, put this plant in the ground, move my body to make myself feel better, take a nap. That's not hard. Though access to that kind of clarity in our decision making, I don't know if we realize we're kind of losing access to that, right? As a state of mind, And I think that comes from all the distraction, all the noise. It's enticing, it's hypnotic. Though We're responsible for what we are allowing ourselves to be exposed to. And I wouldn't have thought it before, but even subconsciously, sometimes we want to give somebody else the responsibility. So if we can sit and talk about these presidents and these people are doing this, and it removes, it's disempowering. It's not that these other things aren't happening, though that conversation doesn't leave you with your, I don't want to say marching orders, but I'm always wondering what is there for me to do? What do I need to do with my time? What is there for me to do? What can I do? And we can come up with that right now. You might have some dishes to wash, something to organize. As humans, our emotions are going to ebb and flow. That's a fact. There's sometimes certain things, states of mind, I don't like to claim and I don't like to affirm. Just the other day, with the things that are flashed at you online, I'm very sensitive. So I realized something was flashing across. The next thing, it can have you feeling kind of down. But just some sleep, a nap, music, cleaning, which is a huge practice. That's a spiritual practice. To grab, I used to watch Grandma Lou every Saturday. The underwear drawers get flipped out and get folded over. The closets get folded. Everything is clean. That is so deeply therapeutic. That is something that you can do. It's a different vibe. Even as much as I like music, as I'm listening and tuning into my own divine onboard intelligence, I was thinking this morning, no music. The birds. Like, are you hearing the birds? And it's one of the reasons why on this channel I'm so big on garden therapy and nature. Like, it's like we got to make everything such a big production, right? And it's like you got to get more things before you can do something. It's like in all my years in personal training, I hear so many people, I got to get fit before I go to the gym. I'm going to do some cardio before I go to the gym. That makes no sense. The language, a lot of our language is so non-committal. We don't confront the things that we can do because it is uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. And we are enticed. And I think a lot of our priority, and it doesn't make us bad or wrong, just something to consider. A lot of us, even as women, our priority, as much as we talk about men, a lot of our priority is to fit in with the group. Everything rides on fitting in with the group. Yeah, so this probably don't fit in. So this is why sometimes for myself and the time that I have here on the planet in this human suit, I have made a conscious decision to choose health and confidence over someone else's made up moving goalpost of beauty. And that is not only from men, that is also from women, because we are also very judgmental and harsh on each other. It is one of the reasons why at this time I can acknowledge if somebody, they have a perm and they're beautiful, if they look different and there's something beneficial about them, if they eat totally different, if they eat flesh, so another human being, we all have things about us that are valuable. I don't know that I feel like it's a waste of my time. It's not enriching me. It's not making me better. And we can get so sidetracked. I would even say that in today's social media climate, a lot of what we're communicating with each other about, it's not a communicating with each other's onboard divine intelligence, right? Really seeing us for who we are. You can look at me and see, I'm this age, I'm this color, I've got kinky hair, there's the judgments, the judgments, the judgments. You don't have this, you're doing it. But it's not necessarily tapping into, I don't know, the best that we have to offer and experience as a human being. A lot of times we're only communicating back and forth, not even back and forth. They're downloads coming one way, information is going in one way. A lot of times we're only communicating with each other's egos, with each other's judgments, with each other's trauma. And it has a feel, it has a vibe to it, right? It's not the divine intelligence. Your divine intelligence knows that as we know it on this plane, this is going to expire as we know it. None of us, for the most part, really know what's going to happen after. That is one of the 5 basic fears, right? So I don't know if I want to say it takes a lot of bravery, but it takes a lot to stand on your square and to determine what do you want to experience right now while in your human suit. Who do you want to be? Not just for other people, to yourself. Because who do you want to be? What we want to express, what we want to experience, a lot of times is compromised by our ego, constantly trying to fit in, constantly trying not to be judged when we're also judging ourselves and each other. It's like an interference. So we're communicating a lot with each other's egos. I hope that this is making sense. So this all connected to back to my original contemplation this morning. And I think about it a lot as women. You're welcome. I don't know. And you don't have to. You don't have to comment because I'm not into necessarily the back and forth online. But I wonder if women, if we consider in our not being responsible or and not conscientious or let's see even more, I like to be effective with my communication and not thinking or and being responsible and accountable for the long-term results. We are contributing, if we are raising, we are contributing to children, human beings who are not raised to feel safe, provided for. They're not able to get all the attention that they need. They're not learning problem solving. So it's easy for us to say, I'm providing food, clothing, and shelter. And we can brag about the children's grades. Yet, who human beings, the environment that they need, the environment that we need to be healthy, right? I don't know who was it that said it's easier to raise healthy men than to try to repair somebody that's broken. I would say human beings. It can be more efficient. We may think it's slow, and again, that's a mentality. We may think it's slow. It's too slow to take the time to do the work on ourselves, right? It's a good example. It's too slow to prepare fresh food for myself. It takes too much time. Yet you're spending more money when you're eating substances that masquerade as food that you can never get full from because it doesn't have enough nourishment to nourish you at a cellular level. It's clogging you up. Now you got to buy more laxatives and detox programs. Then you got to buy bigger clothing. Then really, even though we have all these makeup palettes in our quiet moments, we're not feeling good in our body temples. We don't feel energetic. We're not thinking that we're compromising ourselves. So by the time, I would say 50, but now we're seeing lots of diseases showing up in our 30s. So when we say we're winning, I get in one sense, but in our quiet moments, are we really being honest? And here's why I say you're not going to be encouraged necessarily to be honest, because that dishonesty is very profitable. That not being able to tune into our own intelligence so that we can make decisions that it's not about perfection, though being intentional and keeping yourself out of harm's way, your reproductive organs, not setting up a bunch of human beings in a situation they can't fend for themselves, where they don't feel safe and they don't feel secure. Right? So to our young flowers, gotta say, I think it's our ego. I think it's our ego that in those defining moments when you know you're about to engage with someone that has no intention, you don't really have an intention on parenting. That person doesn't have an intention on parenting. How do we know this? Because no provisions have been made, no setup has been made. So are we really honest? It's not about beating up on ourselves. It's taking accountability. So this is why I say, if we look, let's say, for example, at Indigenous Americans, it's not exclusive, but in one specific experience, Indigenous Americans and Afro people, their rate of diabetes, of blood sugar, which I'm going to translate it like this. We have such a need for sugar and food distraction due to stress, anxiety, poverty, unfulfilled dreams, not having gotten certain skills for processing information and trauma, that we go for the distraction of food, substances masquerading as food, too much sugar, too much alcohol, drugs, and other substances. It makes perfect sense. This is so simple. So at this point, there's enough information for us to ascertain, to discern, step back in your quiet moments. I really don't think that we need, and this is my personal perspective. Let me speak for me. I don't need a minister, a religious person. I don't need a religious figure, an icon to tell me these basics. I need to exercise. What can I do that's therapeutic that makes me feel better? I don't need anybody to tell me that. And for me, and I do get playing in makeup and clothing, that can be fun. I love fashion. I love thrifting. Yet that's not addressing the things that need to be addressed. Unresolved trauma. All the clothing and makeup is not making my body temple healthier. It's not strengthening my heart. It's not helping my bone density. You got to take that stuff off. A lot of times we're paying all this money for these expensive containers, storage units. Going back and forth to work to pay for a storage unit of stuff. And in my travels, and as I walk around and I see families. I've witnessed several floods a few minutes away from me recently, but the whole area was underwater. And it's easy for us to go to different countries and travel and sometimes think that people are poor. Everybody has their pluses and minuses. But when I look at the resiliency of sometimes people that live simply, where they have their family, again, doesn't mean they don't have other things. But when I look at family, when I look to see not many people with strollers, everybody's holding their babies, watching, a young couple, I was invited to their wedding. How often do we see young virgins that are really taken on and excited about a union? Again, they're all going to be all types of family structures. Yet I don't see it. We say the words. I don't see, and this, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to pan out. Just like with all the prosthetics that we're implanting into our bodies, which in general to me are not safe. They're not safe. We're not looking at the long-term implications of allowing ourselves to be misled and jumping on the bandwagon of all these social media movements. I think it's a long time. Can we not? I'm very clear. I grew up on hip hop, rap music, all of that, but it's so destructive. There's nothing beneficial. The music doesn't encourage family. It encourages overusing your reproductive organs. It glorifies drugs and alcohol. It's like, this is not rocket science. It's hypnotic, though I can recognize that desire to fit in. The desire, whether it's looking up to a pastor, minister, rap artist, there's a desire to look up to something, which usually initially is your father, the father figure. So it's easy to see why all these religions is easy. We've been groomed from the jump start for narcissism and to hand over control and a lack of responsibility. If you even think of a lot of, I know that I was raised, give it over to this person, give it over to that person. I give my life over. Yet I'm wary of anything. It sounds like it's making you feel better, especially if you're vulnerable and traumatized. But I'm wary. I'm suspect of anyone that is removing my accountability or enticing me to let it go, because that weakens me. Maybe that's not you. So I invite us to consider, what are we doing? And are we doing anything to cultivate a safe space? Not preaching at young men and women. Are we modeling accountability and responsibility with our reproductive organs, with our health, with what we're eating? I think we grossly underestimate the impact that has, because our young people, and it's not, we're work in progress, but the language is mostly the excuses and giving ourselves the out. It is very impactful when our children watch us prioritize things that we're doing for ourselves that are therapeutic, like the garden, like a movement practice, something that we're doing on an ongoing basis to keep ourselves joyful, uplifted, healthy, strong, as a daily practice. Whatever that's what they're watching. That has anyone I've ever come in contact with, any humans, that their parents or grandparents, they exercise, they are healthy. Oh, my mother always did this. My dad, they always did that. There's a sense of pride when young men watch their mothers take care of themselves, not just superficially. I get it. I'm not demonizing the makeup, but it's like we're encouraged to lie to ourselves. I came in a little late. Sure. Greetings, Carolyn. Greetings, Alice. Sure, you can ask something. I'm just on here in the spirit and I got to get off soon. So, but just these my early morning garden movement contemplations. And I come on because there's some beautiful young women flowers. They ask me questions from time to time. And I remember, some of them have said, where were you when I was in my 20s? Where were you? And sometimes our parents, mothers, father, they're humans too. They're subjected. Maybe it looks a little different to the same environments that we're in. And sometimes they're just not present. Everyone is so in their little bubble of trauma that we're not present. And this is what I'm speaking to. If we're not able to discern that a lot of being attracted to folks that physically are very attractive, yet not making the distinction that there's a lack of maturity. How can we measure a lack of maturity? Young flowers and some of the young men may come here because you don't see accountability and responsibility. For example, keep it simple. I got to keep it simple. As one of my flowers say, no. One of my flowers, shout out, she knows she is my little artist flower. She said, no, it's not simple. You're saying too much. If somebody gives you access to their reproductive organs too quickly, that is a red flag. At a basic level, if they're not protecting them, if they don't have discernment to protect themselves and not put themselves at risk for unplanned pregnancy or diseases in this climate, that's a red flag. That is an extreme red flag. This is what I'm saying. This is something you have access to. And then, grown adults, of mature ages doing the same thing. This is not about shaming us or making us bad or wrong. I'm not there with you. In your quiet moments, do you not question these things? Those defining moments when we put certain things in our mouth. I don't know about you. I wouldn't eat one Oreo. I'd be eating the whole 3 rows with some chilled vanilla Vitasoy, and we calling myself a vegan. My skin is acneed up. It's lying to ourselves. So I question the marketing or a person that is enticing me or making it so attractive. And I also got to question what I'm attractive to and to unpack it. Thank you. I was wondering how I can stay natural with my hair. Let's see. Alice says, I was wondering how I can stay natural with my hair after having a baby 3 months ago and battling PCOS. My locks end up getting brittle and shedding unless I use a product. Well, I'm somewhat familiar with PCOS. I would say this. Some people consider this brittle. This is soft. I'm not using any products for several reasons. You said I tried to focus on nutrient-rich foods. So I can tell you what I do. First of all, I'm not into. If I want to neaten this up, I would more than likely spritz it with water or Nopales gel that I can pull from my garden. Usually, I spritz it with water and tie it down with a scarf. So to me, moisture is not oil. I don't have any dandruff. My hair feels very soft. So I find that the oils and the products, I don't have products to recommend because I'm not using products. And for me, I prioritize ease and relaxation and not being on the whole stroll with products. I find too much stuff stressful, feeling like I got to chase this product and this and that. So I've decided to allow myself to see what my hair and my skin can do on its own, because it's like it just has to be natural. I was just watching a fantastic, lovely channel from this beautiful woman. It's all these femininity channels. And then she was like, I don't use a lot of products. I'm a busy mom and my schedule's so simple. And then she proceeded to pull out high-end, way more than 15 products. I refuse. That's where I pull on Grandma Lou, because my Grandma Lou would probably just chuckle. The expense, if each product is 10, 15, I'm not saying we shouldn't take care of ourselves, and I don't tell grown folks what to do. Yeah, I just don't think it should have to be that complicated. I don't think that it should be complicated to eat healthy and to be fit. It's not complicated. So what I would say is more so about what you leave out. So I don't have any products. So I can see what my hair can do. And yesterday, it was a young lady's birthday. Happy birthday to you again. And I went, and yesterday I didn't train per se, but I danced my behind off. Boy, I was dripping with sweat. I did every house music dance. I had so much fun. So that was my workout yesterday. So, and instead of slicking my edges down, I had like my little Afro bun. I'm not slicking it. I'll just take a pin and I can just pin back some of the edges and I spritz it with water. So I'm not using any products and the hair will grow. Hair grows if you have good circulation, if you're eating nutrients. I think we're underestimating what we leave out. I really don't even think we're absorbing most of the detox kits and the herbs because we detox to retox. And then when your body is detoxing, it's because something is in there that your body, your onboard intelligence is trying to get out. That's natural intelligence. So I can't tell you how to style your hair. I've embraced mine. This may not be for everybody, yet this is the original option for us as Afro women. So I found it very freeing to get up and just to put my hands in my scalp because with your own intelligence, you can feel your hair, right? And I've retrained my eyes. Dry, not being wet is different from dry, brittle. So I found when I used to the oils and the shea butters, they felt really great going on. But then after a while, it gets like coated and it starts to get the oil gets hard and it gets stiff, thus the buildup. So now I've been cutting off, uh, trimming systematically. I just did another trim. The areas where it used to be, these used to be big, fluffy double strand twists. So because my hair is fine, this is compact. This is a fluffy twist. Now it's like several of these are together. So I can see what my hair is going to do. And yesterday I was talking to a woman. She's French and she's mixed, Caucasian and Afro. And she has mixed hair. She's like, oh, I want that. And I was like, we're all on a spectrum with different hair textures. So this is cottony. I can see what we'll do. So I said, she thought my hair was thick. I said, it's all flat. Would I have a hairpin in here? Because I don't use gel. So all of these are flat. Most people don't want this. So she thinks it looks full. I have found the most relief and ease. I'm into the ease, health, ease, and relaxation and simplicity because it is sustainable. The simplicity is what's sustainable. So I find that's more so about what I leave out and being creative with what it is that I have, what I'm growing in my yard, in my windowsill, and just embracing what the hair does. It's all flat. So I used to be a little like, wow, if I let these join, I don't know what the hair is going to look like. So I've just decided to embrace it. So the hair will change with babies. We can lose our hairline, but it will come back. It will come back. And especially with PCOS, we want to be very mindful of our weight because that can really exacerbate the side effects of PCOS. It's very, very hormonal. So to be at a healthy weight, I would say if we just leave processed foods out, the body is so intelligent, it actually knows what to do. The body can normalize to a healthy, natural weight that is appropriate. And that's going to come from vigorous movement. Vigorous movement. It does so much. It's pumping your lymphatic system, right? It's giving you a shot of feel-good drugs. It's changing your body composition so you can bring your muscle to the skin, right? So the healthy way, just your movement practice and eating whole, fresh foods all the time. And I'm amazed. I can actually say I don't eat junk. I was a junk food junkie. Even I was looking pretty decent from working out, but my skin wasn't. So it's what you leave out and leaving out consistently. My face would not clean up. So 100% worked for me. Stop. And it's only in moments by myself. I had to stop playing games with myself. Stop lying to myself, basically. Right? I love semi-freeform and get my hair wet. I also can't stand using oil in my hair. Yes, I put on too much weight from the bed. I don't know. Well, can we say it's too much weight? See, I like to be not passive or complacent. Yet I like to do a check-in with the tone of how I'm speaking to myself. Because we can say too much. To say, how does that feel when we say I put on too much? Like there's judgment, discernment, and being discerning and ascertaining what do I need to do. And there's judgment that can make us feel bad. So if we put on more weight, and I'm not telling you what to do, I invite you to just check in what feels better, what puts you in a place where you feel like you feel empowered to get into action, right? So the dialogue that we're having with ourselves, as well as the dialogues that are being downloaded, I think they can paralyze us into inaction. So if you can discern that you have more weight than you need, okay, it's eating. And we talk about this a lot in coaching. We do coaching, group coaching, Sundays, 2 p.m. That's whole lifestyle of whole fresh living, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. I'm not anti what people want to do, because you'll find your sweet spot. Trust me, right? And the amount that you need is not dieting. That's if your car needs 20 gallons of gas, it's not 21, it's not 19. So you can discern and find your sweet spot of how much that you need. So making those distinctions can go a long way, right? And with that and movement, regular, vigorous, joyous, sweaty, safe movement, your body will be better than it was before the baby. You may have stretch marks, but so what? That's real life. You're going to get stretch marks, dark marks, corns, whatever. If we could give ourselves some ease and relaxation. That's why I'm wary of all the things being marketed, because it's coming to a point where you just feel unable to be comfortable in your body. I'm suspicious of that. I am very wary of anything that has me feeling like if I don't have this product, it's a catastrophe. Well, you got to spend your last money on a product. It shouldn't be that hard. That's why, let me tell you, I rock with Grandma Lou every day, all day. This woman right here, I had a Caesar there. This woman, I don't know, in the spirit world, I don't know if she'll ever know the impact that she made on me. She was the most pleasant human being I have ever met. She like, eat your own food. Eat your own food. That I get from, she wasn't vegan or vegetarian. Yeah, I like to think I take many of the recipes and the flavor she gave me, and I use all those Caribbean flavors and also use my Southern flavors. I just don't add the flour. I'm not cooking in oil. At this point, I don't use any oil. And I add on to those traditions. I'm adding my chapter, right, to that. But just me watching her comfortable in her own hair with her little plaits and her braids, comfortable in her skin, had a tremendous impact on me. She's one of my few icons, is my Grandma Lou. Simple. She didn't have Susie Orman, she didn't have Oprah, but she saved her money. She was frugal and discerning with how she spent her money. She had a focus like an ant and a hummingbird. My grandma was like an ant and a hummingbird. You go in your garden, you watch the ants and the hummingbirds, light energy, but with a focus to get that nectar out. And you watch the ants. You could try to smash a whole bunch of ants. They come right back. And in a rainy season, the first thing the ants move, they move the queen or the mother, and they move the babies. That's why my church is nature, because nobody's trying to scam me out in the garden. So you also, inside Flower Fit, for any of you that are interested, and there's so many things that I want to do with Flower Fit. Right now, it's just a forum that I've created for folks at this point, in particular women. If you're interested in starting a garden, or perhaps if you have, some of my young ladies are really phenomenal with a green thumb. If you're interested in eating healthy and that is your endeavor, you're getting into action around the things that you value. And the 3 lifestyle practices, leveraged lifestyle practices I like to share on this channel, there are 3. Garden therapy, a personal movement practice, and peaceful consumption, food that loves you back. You can measure that on your waistline, your performance, your energy level, your elimination. Those are things you have access to. Those are things you can do, whatever your financial situation, if you're single in a relationship, those are things you have access to, male, female, however you want to identify yourself. Garden therapy, peaceful consumption, and a personal movement practice. These practices, they will serve you when people leave you. With all the different phases you go through with life, they are foundational. These are foundational lifestyle practices. You just add a bit of education. They'll last you forever. So they level, starting to get hot here, they level the playing field. And I like what levels the playing field. So I'm considering opening up mentorship to different women, especially young women, that have been asking me different questions. Because I remember when at those key moments where you're about to make a decision, that's life altering, we self-sabotage. And a lot of times it's due to trauma. It's definitely also due to it if we're responsible to our own ego. Because, and that was my original thought this morning, we're also setting young men and young women, we're setting them up for kind of, I want to say kind of for like disaster. Maybe that's too catastrophizing. Yet we're setting them up if we're not making provisions in terms of who we're choosing to parent with so we can provide the best possible environment for these children. We're choosing folks that are not interested in parenting, and perhaps that would say, are we really interested in parenting? Or are we using children and young people as a distraction from trauma that's going on in our own lives? Are we using the children as a distraction? That may be, take it however you want. That's not gonna, these are my contemplations. Are we using, do we feel obligated to have children? Right? And if we're having them in a situation where it's a setup where they're not secured in terms of safety, are we considering before we have children? And if you have children, it's not to make you feel guilty, yet we are responsible. And in choosing situations, wouldn't it make sense to set them up? Okay, these are things they need. They need food, clothing, and shelter. Sometimes when I watch people that lace all these gold necklaces and stuff on children, the children need to be safe. These little human beings need to feel safe. Safety. They need good nutrition. They need safety. They need to be educated. They need an environment where not only so they can pass tests, so we can observe them to see what their gifts are and what they have a proclivity to, like what are they going to be, so we can nurture that so they can be productive and healthy and whole human beings. So it's not just men folks that are selfish. It's not. Our choices are affecting everybody else around us. So it's not just the men. Are we setting them up to not have that father essence in their life? And however you choose your family structure, are you making provisions? Women were also equally responsible. That's all I'm saying. Just one woman's perspective. I think it's something for us to consider. If you already have children, then what can we do? Ooh, these are things that, everything I want to discuss here on the internet, because it's so many polarized camps. And again, I'm not Jesus, I'm not a martyr. Though perhaps you can, how can I put this? As I've said to some of my young flowers, it would be wonderful if young women and men could have the foresight to stay disease-free, protect your reproductive organs, which are being enticed to use indiscriminately and irresponsibly, affecting other people. If you could be clear on making effective decisions that are long-term, even if your parents weren't in that mindset state. If you can be clear, okay, they didn't get what they needed. Okay, I need to start making decisions, long-term decisions for myself. I'm not making decisions that are going to really set me back 25 years and potentially set 2 other people back because I haven't made provisions, right? And we can really get into that narrative, kicks right in. Oh, not everything is perfect. And you got to have children at some point. There's no accountability there. There's no that's immature. That's I'm going to say that's underdeveloped. It's not about blaming us. It's about us being responsible. That's underdeveloped thinking. How long do we function from a space of immaturity and continue to look to celebrities? And I'm just going to say it. Pastors, everybody else. We're conditioned to look to everybody else but our own onboard intelligence to be responsible for making decisions. So this is where I say, a perfect place to cultivate discernment and clarity. The perfect place, the dojo, the training ground to cultivate discernment and clarity is your personal movement practice. When you're there huffing and puffing and sweating, you're going to get clear. When you simply make a decision, I'm not going to feed myself trash. A lot of trash is very tasty. It's a party in your mouth. Who wants to set themselves up for cancer after you get through all of this working and you finally get what you want to and you got this many degrees? Now you got to deal with cancer or some other disease, right? Type 2 diabetes, that's lifestyle. We're setting ourselves up and setting the next generation. We're setting ourselves up. And we can make other decisions. There are things that we have access to. Garden therapy, peaceful consumption, a personal movement practice. And may not be attractive. It may seem like it's boring. The garden, I would dare say, it's whole reality TV. It's not boring. It's different. You can see that there's a lack of peace. There's constant anxiety, and that is part of the drive for more distraction. It doesn't have a really good trajectory. Anyway, I'm sending you all some warm, positive vibrations. You can check out Kwasapeacefull Eating on TikTok. I post a little over there, a little bit on, what is that thing? Instagram. I'm constantly looking to streamline because it's a lot of energy to disperse out onto social media. So I like to pull things in because energetic, and it can have you feeling very depleted. So I like to be mindful, and I want to be useful and intentional about the energy that I'm putting out. So if you're interested and need to reach out to me or to speak to me for coaching or mentoring, I'm thinking about doing something, expanding Flower Fit. We'll see. In the future, I want to do it in a way that is effective. Mentoring for young women. I am not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't deal with drugs. I deal with food, real food, movement, and plants. That's all I have for you. And I think we can grossly underestimate these lifestyle practices. Oh, so do check out, if you want to get into action, there is a guide that is called Whole Living Foods in the Hood with menus to fit your budget. And I'm very conscientious. People are at different spaces in their life. So if you have $5, $20, $100, or you want to go to a wholesaler with $200, you can maximize your spending. This is a guide to whole, fresh living and unprocessed foods as a lifestyle that is not a diet. So it's not TVP, it's not tofu. There are pictures of what I've been packing to take to out on the road because I carry my food with me. I've traveled and lived abroad out of a suitcase, traveling for certain professions. And I feel confident I can eat anywhere with a couple of dollars. So it's a mindset shift that is not a diet. Not a diet. It's not a diet. And it is investment. This is your biggest 401k is here. Your physical temple, which is also going to lead to your mental temple. So that's a guide, Whole Living Foods in the Hood with menus to fit your budget, pictures if you're a parent taking your lifestyle on the road. There's also another book that I did called Natural Beauty, No Products. Again, I'm not demonizing products. I just know for me, all those products I found are just stressful. I prioritize freedom, which is why I call this freedom here. And as somebody that had a tremendous amount of acne, it was too much. The only thing that cleared up my skin was 100% whole living foods and vigorous movement. That's it. That's the simplest way I can put it. That easy. So, I'm into this here for me is freedom here. I'm not twisting it. Freedom and not having to feel like I'm going nuts from trying to buy everything. Actually, all the expensive clothes, all that stuff went in the garden. Actually, I'm more into vintage now with maybe a few little pieces, but that's not my main priority. Travel, the garden, ease, rest, relaxation, that's more of a priority for me. I think we're really lulled into distraction. And if I'm going to be distracted, I want to choose that distraction very conscientiously. In the About section, there is an application for Flower Fit if you'd like to gain access to Flower Fit community. And then there's also group coaching is available. That's on Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, so over in this little corner of the internet, I like to say, natural bodies matter. Again, if you've altered yourself, it doesn't make you bad or wrong. Yet I invite young women to consider just really consider doing things that are very permanent to yourself when you are likely going to change so many of your points of view, right? Let's say tatting up your body. You can go play with safe henna and experiment and move things around rather than altering yourself in a very permanent way, following the crowd. Groupthink is thicker than ever. It's not new, yet it's thicker than ever. And to alter yourself in a way that is permanent, I think it can deeply affect your self-esteem when you turn around and realize, wow, I altered myself and my mind is still the same. It didn't fix everything. All of this altering, right? It didn't fix anything. It didn't change anything because this is still the same, right? This is still the same. So your lifestyle practices are deeply therapeutic. I can't emphasize that enough. I encourage you. Peaceful consumption, garden therapy, personal movement practice. You're welcome to come and to move with me Monday through Thursday, 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You'll be dripping on the floor and sweat. You only need a small space, a yoga mat, and a towel, and just come prepared to learn and to sweat. There's a lot of corrective exercise and modifications made for people that may have limited mobility. So y'all create a great rest of the day on purpose. Feel free to replay this as you are chopping up your vegetables, as you are decluttering, and as you are stretching. That's a wonderful use of the internet. Are you leveraging your time, right? So I will see you all really, really soon.